So let's talk about an example of how dynamic process transformation was used in real life in a client situation. So this is probably from a year ago. I was working with a government organization in the Middle East. And this is an organization that had opportunities, but nothing was really broken. They were working extremely well. They had a remit that was obviously only for their own country. And they had a new shared services leader that was very eager to take their shared services organization to a totally different level, especially because if you kind of think of government organizations, they are probably not as eager to outsource a lot of the work to another country because part of their mandate was to actually provide jobs inside the country. So in that situation, I went in and I helped them understand that efficiency or even choices like sourcing the work differently doesn't necessarily have to be about geographic complexity. So in other words, you don't have to necessarily outsource to another country. The levers of change are really what matters. So what we did was we organized the GBS organization along the lines of traditional high maturity GBS organizations, which is creating product and services leaders, having client managers, and then having operations, which was a combination of outsourcing vendors and in-source centers that were really built for scale, and they were built for automation. And so the starting point was really to bring the leadership of GBS along on the journey to understand how this dynamic process transformation model works. And I have to say, they were very quick at it. They were very eager to prove themselves. And over a period of quite literally only about 9 months or so, it was great to see the product and services of this shared services organization come into fruition, because each of those started an annual cycle of trying to figure out what was their strategic direction for their services, like, for example, payroll or accounting. What was their innovation plan? Who were their users and who were their stakeholder clients? And although they did not cross-charge their services to the parent organization, they actually created pro forma invoices so they could prove that they were operating with the agility and the benchmarking of any other external company. I have to say, the results were very gratifying, because this was an organization that suddenly started to get even more exposure from within the corporation. They got much more work. They doubled, close to doubled their scope of work. But more gratifying was the fact that a lot of the new work was about innovation. It wasn't just about operations. So through this particular process, I think there were a couple of key lessons that came out. One is, this model of dynamic process transformation isn't just something that it works for large companies or global companies. It's a model that can work in private companies and in public sector or government organizations and nonprofits. Another key lesson here was the importance of starting with the fundamental drivers, which is the open market rules. So setting up the global business services organizations as product or services, and doing benchmarks and having them figure out who their competition is outside of the organization. That was key. And then the third lesson that I think came out of this is the importance of involving the entire organization. This wasn't necessarily just the leader saying, I want to get this done. There was a communication strategy and a plan to bring the middle management along on the journey, the youngest people or the newest people in GBS, but then also the rest of the organization to come along on the journey. But it's beautiful when the entire model can be put together. The results were incredible, and they have been recognized not just within their own corporation, but outside as well.